Welcome to The Explainer. What if everything you were taught about money was just plain wrong? Today, we're diving into one of the most influential and honestly controversial finance books ever, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. We're going to unpack its core secret to building wealth. So, the whole power of this book comes from a really simple, real life conflict. As a kid, the author, Kiyosaki, had two father figures. First, there was his own dad, super educated, a government employee, but always struggling with bills. That was his poor dad. Then you had his best friend's father, a guy who dropped out of high school but became a millionaire, his rich dad. And as you can see, their advice, well, it couldn't have been more different. And we're not just talking about career advice here. These two dads had completely opposite ways of looking at the world, and especially about the very nature of money itself. I mean, just look at this contrast. Poor Dad's view is all about fear and limitation. The love of money is the root of all evil. That way of thinking leads straight to a dead end. I can't afford it. It just shuts your brain down. But Rich Dad, he flips the script entirely. For him, the lack of money is the real problem. And asking, how can I afford it? That's not about being reckless. It's about turning your brain on and forcing it to find solutions. This difference in mindset isn't just a philosophical debate. It leads people down two totally different paths in life. Rich Dad explained that most people, his poor dad included, are stuck in something he called the rat race. So, what keeps this whole thing going? Well, according to Rich Dad, it's powered by two core emotions. The first one is fear. The fear of not having enough money, of not being able to pay your bills. That's what gets you out of bed every morning to go work for a paycheck. But then, the moment that paycheck hits your bank account, the second emotion takes over. Desire. Or, greed. You start thinking about all the cool stuff you can buy, a nicer car, a bigger TV, a better phone, and that desire makes you spend everything you just earned. And this creates that classic vicious cycle, right? You get up, you go to work, you pay your bills, and then you do it all over again. The crazy part is, getting a raise doesn't fix it. It just makes the wheel spin faster because you end up spending more. So how on earth do you get out? Well, Rich Dad taught that escaping the rat race has nothing to do with working harder. It's all about understanding one single, profound rule. This is really the aha moment of the entire book. He said it's simple. If you want to be rich, you have to know the difference between an asset and a liability. And then you have to spend your life buying assets. But what does that actually mean in the real world? Forget all the complicated financial jargon you've heard. Rich Dad kept the definitions incredibly simple. An asset is anything, and I mean anything, that puts money in your pocket. That's it. Think of things like a rental property that pays you every month, or stocks that pay dividends. And a liability? Well, it's the exact opposite. It's anything that takes money out of your pocket. Super simple, right? The problem is, most people completely confuse the two. And this right here, this is probably the biggest reason for most financial struggles. People spend their whole lives buying things that drain their bank accounts, all while thinking they're buying assets that are making them richer. Okay, to really get this, we've got to visualize it. Let's take a look at the cash flow patterns Rich Dad would draw to explain this whole concept. So this is the pattern for most people. Income comes in from a job, but then whoosh, it flows right back out to pay for taxes, a mortgage, car payments, credit cards. That house set everyone says is your biggest asset, from a cash flow perspective, it's actually your biggest liability, constantly taking money out of your pocket. You're working for your boss, for the government, and for the bank. Now, check out the cash flow of the rich. It's a totally different picture. They focus on building up that asset column. They use their money to buy things that generate more income. And this creates this amazing, powerful loop. The money from their assets pays for their lifestyle, and whatever's left over gets plowed back into buying even more assets. And this chart just makes it so obvious. The middle class relies almost completely on their salary. But look at the rich. A massive 70% of their income comes directly from their assets. They've built a system, a money-making machine, where their money is working hard for them instead of the other way around. It becomes a cycle of wealth that just keeps growing on its own. So this brings us to a really crucial question. What is the very first and most important asset that you should acquire? And here's a hint. It's not a stock, and it's not a piece of real estate. The ultimate lesson in the book is that wealth isn't really about the money itself. It's about what you know.
As the quote says, money without financial intelligence is money soon gone. Think about lottery winners who end up broke. It's the knowledge of how money actually works that truly makes you rich and keeps you rich.
And that's why your mind, your financial education, is the most powerful asset you will ever have. Investing in yourself, reading books, learning about markets, understanding the rules of the game, that is the most important investment you can possibly make. It's the one tool that can build wealth from absolutely nothing. And so that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. If your ability to learn and to think is what ultimately builds wealth, what are you doing today to invest in your greatest asset?